Good morning, everybody. So first, like Sergio, we met earlier, and he told me, the first thing he said is, I know nothing about ice hockey. I said, don't worry, I don't know anything about ice hockey, too. So this is going to be a fun hour for us to share some ideas. Very first thing is thanks. Thanks for being coaches. I remember sitting in a convention in 1995, a seminar in a very similar situation to everybody now, and that started my career, and it was in Ontario. And not often do people say thank you to you women and men for coaching a game. You're coaching a game for young girls and young boys to play an awesome sport that we all enjoy. We all enjoy teaching and sharing our knowledge. So thanks, because a lot of times people are just yelling at you or telling you what you did wrong or how you're screwing their kids over playing or whatever it might be. So from one coach to another, thank you very much to everybody for being coaches. Today we're going to do a little bit different, and if we have time at the end, I'm going to invite maybe 2 volunteers to come up, and we're going to continue this presentation if we have time at the end. And the presentation today is going to be about pre-scouting. So a lot of the people that are in the room right now, you might not have the same resources that professional teams would have or federations might have when you can use video to pre-scout your opponent. There's ways that you can pre-scout your opponent without even having video. You can pre-scout your opponent today. If you're watching somebody, you can take notes. It's how you present your information to your team and to your staff, and we're going to talk about that today. Today I decided to do a pre-scout on Team Austria. And the reason I chose Austria is because today Finland, the host country that's here, is going to be playing Austria, and I'm quite sure that they have all their work done already, so we're not going to be giving any secrets about Austria. I also really like the way Team Austria is ascending, how they're playing. I've watched them for a long time. I think Roger and his staff are doing a great job. So we're going to try to get to know Austria, and I'm going to show you how I personally would pre-scout an opponent. Hopefully you can take some things away. So when you're pre-scouting, what you're essentially trying to do is you're trying to create a game plan for your team. Now, I'm not sure how everybody in this room would pre-scout. I like to do the pre-scout myself as a head coach. In the NHL, I did it as an assistant coach. The last 5 years before I got to Vermont, I was in Winnipeg, and I would do the pre-scouts, and I really enjoyed them. So I would do 4 or 5 games versus an opponent that we were going to play. And as you become more familiar with your opponents, you can get away from clips of the team that you're playing, and maybe you choose to use clips of the way that your own team plays. You focus on yourself. But for today, we're going to focus on looking at Austria and try to create a game plan if you were going to play against Austria this afternoon. So we're looking for details inside of a game. So teams are rehearsed. They are predictable, how you practice. You practice the same things all the time. You want to do exactly what your will would be. You want to impose your will on your opponents, how you break out, how you get through the neutral zone, how you forecheck, how you set forecheck, how you neutral zone forecheck, how you come back into the D zone. All those things are usually rehearsed, and we're trying to find the blueprint of the other team, and then you can make a game plan yourself on how to play those opponents. So if you have 4 days to prepare for an opponent, you can change in how you practice. If you have 1 or 2 games, you can talk about it with your team before the games. If you're dealing with professionals, they're going to know things. If you're dealing with people who aren't professionals yet, maybe 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds, you can let them know what they will expect to see. So we're looking for the DNA of an opponent. What makes that opponent who they are? What makes them special? And maybe what makes them vulnerable. So we're looking for areas to exploit, and we're looking at what they do very well, the strengths and the weaknesses of the team. And then you want evidence. So normal pre-scouts might take me, for one team, it might take me 14, 15 hours to do a pre-scout for one team, to do it right. And the end result of that pre-scout is going to be a very efficient, small meeting. So if you were my team and we got up and we're going to talk about our opponents, you are going to see a very small piece of the work that gets done. But I can promise you that our staff will know the opponent that we're going to play. Because in games, when things happen, sometimes you do have to make adjustments, but if you're prepared, your team is going to feel prepared. They will be confident going into the opponent that you're playing, that they will know what to expect. And that's what we're trying to find. So you need evidence. So video is the best evidence that you can have. So if you can show them clips of doing things. What I like to do is I like to show the other team doing something, and then I'll have a library of clips of us doing it right against them. If it's a 1-2-2 forecheck, whatever it might be, we're going to say we want to hit the middle. Here's a clip of us hitting the middle. So we're going to look at today a few things. We're going to look at the opponent's DNA, but I'm also going to show you how you can organize inside the video your own library of clips so you can always have them. So it's going to be a little bit multi-tool presentation for you today. Teams are predicted, we talked about it, and the end result, player's perspective. So for the grammar people in the world there's players with an S and an apostrophe at the end. That means multiple players' perspectives. People learn differently. So I can tell you something. I can draw you something. I can put up a Word document. We can practice it. I can draw a drill. We can do a drill. Players learn things differently. This is just one way of the players and your team going to learn. And then there's video and there's non-video proof. So I'm going to give you video proof, and then I'm actually going to show you a document that you can all steal and borrow, because that's what coaching is doing. It's R&D. Mike Babcock says R&D, robbing and doing. All we're going to try to do today is to rob and to do. So this would be an example of a long pre-scout. Okay, so this is what I went through, all these games that are at the bottom. I went through every single one of these games, and there's a game against Czech too from the preseason against these guys. And this is what I came up with. Nobody wants to sit here and watch 112 clips, right? Like, you'll be asleep. If you're not already asleep on me, you'd be asleep if we looked at 112 clips. Nobody wants to do that. So what we want to do is to make that efficient. So this would be the first example. If you have a video coach, for example, your video coach might give you a long sorter. The program I use is called Sports Code Huddle, which makes things very easy for us. So this is going to be a pre-scout that we're actually going to go through here together. All right, here we go. So I just took this just to show you an example of line. So this is Team USA. This isn't the Austrians. This is Team USA. If you're going to be in a tournament or you're playing against a team for the first time, normally you'd want to take a lineup. You might not know who they are, but the players in your team, often they will know people. So if I go into a playoff series, we played against Maine in the playoffs this year. We had a big victory in Maine on the road, and a big piece of that was knowing who the players were. You go through each of these guys. I would be more detailed than this. This is just taken from the internet. We know the internet's never wrong. Twitter is never wrong. And you take these and you go through these guys, and I would say to the team, okay, who knows Rocco Grimaldi? What do you got on Rocco Grimaldi? And then somebody is going to say, I know Rocco, he's very skilled. They might talk about him. I would probably be a little bit more detailed here. I'd have what hand they shoot. I would want to know how many centermans are lefties, how many centermans are righties. If he or she is a lefty and you only have 4 lefties there, that's a tactical advantage for you to know that they only have 4 left-handed centermen. That means when you're choosing on an icing, you might want to choose to put that centerman on their weak side, their D-zone right. Anything you can have in there. You might have, this is Alex Tuck, he's big, he likes to hang on to pucks, whatever it might be. How many left-handed D, how many right-handed D, how big they are. And then we would want to talk about who we can exploit. As a coach, you also want to know which of these lines can you pick on? Which of these lines do you need to be aware of? Who is strong? Where is the Connor McDavid on this line? Right, in this group. You want to find all those things. You would have a separate pre-scout usually for goalies. So that's where your goalie coach gets involved. On my staff, we want to make sure everybody in the staff has a big voice. Our goalie coach would actually get up and present on these goalies. We would have a separate pre-scout. I'm not going to bore you with that because I certainly don't understand goalies. So when I look at a pre-scout, I like to work from their end out. So in these clips, for this one, Austria is in white. That might seem like a small detail to you, but you haven't seen these clips. I've seen these clips 40 times preparing for this conference this morning. So even a small detail of saying to the players in the room, we're looking at the team in white right now. They might not know that Austria is in white and Sweden's in blue. So whoever you're playing, let them know the small details. We're going to look at some face-offs throughout this pre-scout, and we're going to work from their end out. So this is D-zone face-off for Austria. So some small details here. We have a right-handed defenseman, we have a left-handed defenseman. So why is that important? You're trying to educate your team. We're looking to see when they are at their best, how do they want to exit if they win on a D-zone face-off? So, and when you have these situations, we might be looking at a left-handed defenseman that comes out the weak side. We're trying to find what they want to do so we can make a plan against that. So they're trying to go out the weak side. So we would be talking about this team saying this is a team that most often wants to exit on the weak side. We're also looking for themes inside this team. So Austria does some amazing things. They're very, very, very well coached. And we can see that they like to slash on their exits, not just their breakouts or faceoffs. They want to get across the ice. They want to slash in those exits. That's information for us. That's information for us to tell our D to expect that slash to come across. Almost 100% of the clips that I watched going into this presentation, Austria was looking to slash. That's evidence. We're going to show that over and over and over again. And the next part is, how do you stop that? Or how do we counter against that? Camera changes. This might seem like a small detail, but I would go through on all these clips and try to have the least amount of camera changes. We want to be as efficient as we can. I've already spent 7 minutes talking and I've only got through one clip, so I'm not very efficient this morning. But we don't want to have a whole bunch of camera changes. We have to have a camera change on this because this is going to show us what we're talking about. But here's this face-off again. Now we have a lefty. We have a lefty that's here, we have a lefty that's here. That's good information. We want to pick on teams when they have a situation where they would have two lefties. It's very hard for lefties to come back up the strong side on a D-zone face-off win. So this is Team Germany, coached by Harry Kreis. Excellent coach, doing a great job here. His players would be prepared. I know Harry very well, and they're going to read that. So this is what you would do against teams that you know are going to want to come out that weak side because this is a lefty. You want to shut that down. Right? You're shutting that down. This team has obviously been prepared about that. From there, they get a little bit of offense. One more D-zone face-off. This would be about a theme, right? So we're looking for areas to exploit, right? So Austria does a great job. If I was coaching against them, I'd say we want to pick on their D. It seemed to me in these pre-scouts that their D were pressured and were pressured into turning pucks over very often. So this is going through 5 or 6 games, so I want to prove that to the team that I'm coaching. I want to say, we want to stay on these D. That's a theme. We want to hunt their D. So now we're going to talk about control breakouts. So I don't know if you guys, this is fantastic here. I love this. Just watch this. There you go. Thank you very much. But there's a control breakout, right? So that's a control breakout is when you have time, you set up. When I watched Austria, they had about 645 control breakouts. So they love the control breakout. So we want to know that. So we would want to solve that. That means they want to set up, do what they want to do. We don't want them to do that. We want them to feel pressure. So my team, if this was me, we would talk about how we would solve this. So their control breakouts, they have 4 guys back, and then they're going to have a stretch here. So we don't want them to have that. We would show clips of us solving a control breakout like this. But this is further evidence for them to do it. They're saying, here's a control breakout. I would talk about how our team would solve that. Here's another one for you. Again, evidence. The Danes are sitting back in the neutral zone. We would probably solve that a little bit differently. So now we're going to talk about the next part. As you see, we're working from their D zone out. Now we're going to look for tendencies. So we talked about the slash breakout. They're going to slash all the time. These are tendencies. How do we solve that? Our weak side D, making sure that our weak side D is available. This is a tendency I found in the Austrians. I found that they would overhandle the puck. They would they would look for that extra play in the offensive zone. They didn't get pucks to the net as fast as we would probably want that to be. So I would say we want to make sure that we can hold these blue lines a lot harder against them, looking for anything. And now we're going to talk about some breakouts. Right, so here they are. The team in white is Austria. Germany's in dark. Okay, and what they want to do. So we know, as we've already proven here, that they're going to slash in their breakouts. I personally, when I was watching this, saw this in Germany. Now I'm thinking, okay, if we get through the Austrians, maybe we're going to play the Germans. I would talk about some German tendencies, and I would put this in a separate project. Germans getting caught below the goal line. 3 players below the goal line, which we saw from Germany a few times doing this. We keep that in case we play Germany. We might want to keep this clip again. And then we just talk about all the little details in their game. We know that they're going to slash breakout. I would show clips how we would solve it. Another example of the Austrians getting rid of that puck a little bit early. Tendencies inside their breakouts, their exits. What do we talk about? We talk about their D. We want to stay on their D. We want to stay on their D. We can see this forward getting ready to read possession, looking to slash. And then now, this is what I would call a foundation clip. So I keep a separate project on my desktop. I call it a foundation. I have one for my own team, and I have them all organized. I have it for NHL teams that we watch. I watch a lot of international hockey, men's hockey, women's hockey. I keep foundation clips, and I just love this clip here. Lucas Raymond on Sweden. You're going to see Lucas doing a great job. This is a track. This is how you track. At some point, it might be 3 months down the road, you're going to want to be explaining to your team what a real track looks like, what a back check looks like. This is what it looks like. That's an NHL player doing it right, getting back, making sure that they have numbers. So in these breakouts, where are they vulnerable? How can we exploit these people? We've already talked about getting on their D. So that would be a theme I would have coaching against the Austrians. We got to stay on their D, stay on their D. This is evidence. This is proof. This comes back into the Danes, into the O-zone. And one a good former Jet right here. This is a foundation clip. This is Nicky Ehlers right now, one of the best in the world. And he knows that you don't have time in the offensive zone. You can't overhandle this puck. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have that. This is why he's making $7 million a year, puts that in the back of the net. I would keep that as a foundation clip on how to score goals. I would use the replays. Keep all those replays. Some point, you're going to have a left-handed forward in a similar situation. You want to show him or her those clips and show how to do it. Staying on these D. Let's just hunt these D, hunt these D. As we're talking about the Austrians now, we would say that they had a little bit of problems with the D getting rid of pucks, but I found that in this area right here, the Austrians had a little bit of trouble getting pucks out of the D zone. So we would talk about our D. Let's get down. Let's pre-pinch here. Let's have some early position. There you see France. They get a puck back because of that. You're going to see the same thing right here. With just a little bit of trouble getting these pucks out. Just a little bit of trouble right there. Maybe Harry's team had seen that and they worked on that. I don't know. But now Germany has O-zone time because they worked on an area to exploit. And sometimes it all works together. So now we can't get this puck out. Now this puck comes back in. Now we're going to hunt their D. We're going to hunt their D, stay on top of their D, stay on top of their D. We want to hunt them. We want to hunt them. Now we get some offensive zone time. Offensive zone time, all because we looked for areas to exploit. We certainly wouldn't show all these clips. So we're going to look at we're about halfway done. We're going to look at about 35, 38 clips. I would probably show about 20, 22 clips. And as the week goes on, we would look at their strengths. So in this clip right now, we can see some strengths, right? Like you can see their D doing a fantastic job. When they do have possession and they have time to have clean breakouts, Austria is really good, really good. You can see how they are rehearsed here. You can see where he knows where he wants to go. There's your slash breakout. So we can see that this guy's going to get across this ice. He's working there. And then here's your automatic to the middle. Toes up the ice. This could be a foundation clip. That centerman did a great job. Now Austria's in. They get some O-zone time. This one's fantastic. I love this. I love this little 91 Heinrich here. Fantastic job. Just watch how his hips are going to get around this puck. A lot of D would have a habit of grabbing this puck and then turning around and slowing things down and getting the puck on their forehand. 91 does a great job right there. So I would keep this clip and show a left-handed D at some point. I like to show, if you're a smaller left-handed D, I'd want to show you a clip of that. I have 1,000 clips of left-handed D there like this, or I would have a big right-handed D or a small right-handed centerman or whatever it might be. If you keep them organized, when you're ready for it and somebody needs something, you can show how things are done perfectly like Austria does right there. Fantastic slash breakout. So we're showing our team proof about them. How this is a theme. Their quick transition. So now you start to introduce your game plan against the team that you're going to play. So if you know that the Austrians are a quick transition team, you cannot feed their transition with bad decisions with the puck. That's puck management, puck security. So we don't want to mess around with pucks. What we certainly don't want to do is put little backhand plays into the middle, because as soon as you put backhanded plays into the middle, now you're feeding a team to their strengths. So we've just given Austria a free exit for no reason because we wanted to do a little backhand sauce. So when you're telling your team about that before the game, in between the first period and the second period, now you can come to your teams. Remember that clip we saw against Germany with that backhanded sauce? We asked you not to do it. This is why we don't do it. So that's some evidence into doing that. Austrians, fantastic transition. Love that. Okay, here they are again. And now, imagine that. There's that 3 guys below the goal line in Germany. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my head in case we play Germans in the finals. Right? So we know that. There's more further evidence. Here's your slash breakout. There's your puck support. Looking and seeing this, and now they're gone. We just fed that. Pretty good track right now. Get in. Shooting from the outside. That might be a theme that we would talk about again from the Austrians. Okay, the next thing I would look at personally, so now we've looked at from the D-zone face-off, we looked at control breakouts, we looked at breakouts, we looked at some themes. Now we want to look at neutral zone counter. So neutral zone counter. When we get the puck back in the neutral zone, where do we go with that puck? So I'm only going to show you one of these. This is a real good, this is one more of a D-zone clip for you here. So a foundation clip here. I just love this D on this one. The modern way for D to play now is not to back up. He's going to swing in to shut this down. Does a really, really good job. Forces that guy to unload the puck. But now that same theme, the same theme of staying on their D, staying on their D, staying on their D. And when that happens, you do things right all the time. Now you might end up with a little bit of offense. That's in the back of the net, right? So that's proof. So now we're going to look at the neutral zone counter. Getting it back. There's a line change right now for France. And just looking for tendencies, right? So, these guys are on a line change. France is on a line change. This would play into your neutral zone forecheck. Whatever you do on your neutral zone forecheck, you want to know how they counter. This is a team that likes to hit the post. It's going to go straight up to the strong side, and that's our entry. I would have 3 or 4 clips of that. Neutral zone defense is very important to me and my team. Now, we're going to show you what they're good at. We're going to look at their O-zone forecheck. This is a very strong O-zone forecheck team, so we don't want them to get into O-zone forecheck situations. So we would talk about how we would solve this. The first thing is knowing what the opponent is going to do. So this is going to be a 1-2-2. They're very good. They're very hungry. I like to show them doing their forecheck right. I want my team to have a healthy respect, a healthy fear of the team that you're going to play. That turns into some offensive zone time and a really good scoring chance from their forecheck. This is against the Swedes, one of the best teams in the world. These are all NHL players on Team Sweden. This is Austria doing this right. Here's this 1-2-2. They're in for this. And now we would say, okay, how do we solve these problems? So in 1-2-2s right now, usually the middle is open. And that started happening around 2004, 2005. Teams started to put pucks in the middle. Usually breakouts would be in the wall. It would come at 1, 2 down the wall, 3 down the dot lane, and they would look to forecheck that. Teams are forechecking differently now, but whenever you're getting 1-2-2s, usually this area is open. What the Austrians like to do is they like to pre-pinch. So we want our team to know that. We want them to see that ahead of time. When this situation happens, they're already prepared for knowing. Our wingers are going to know that this guy is going to be coming down on you. So that usually means we have to have the courage to put pucks to the middle. But the foundation clip we could have right now is there's nobody here in the centerman. So we would want to have this centerman to be underneath. Look at this again. This puck's going to get in. There's your 1-2-2. These guys come in hard. I love what they do. Great teaching clip. What do I mean about that center being underneath? So we would want to have 29 right now just to idle down. Slow down a tiny bit right now and arrive underneath this puck. When this puck comes to the wall, you're not much help to your team if you're above that puck, right? So there's their pre-pinch. There's that 91 player, Heinrich, that's a real good player. That's a defenseman. You can start to see their offensive zone tendencies. 91, this is a D. He's in there. And then now watch this guy go. Here's your foundation clip. This is how you track. This is a D. This is a D working back, showing their team at their best. Now they have possession, right? Those are showing what the other team is really good at. Now we're going to put this puck in. Austria's in white. 1-2-2 forecheck right now. So we want to talk about how we would solve this, right? This might be what's called a short share, a little reverse right now, a second quick, which was a second layer of a breakout support, right? There's your pre-pinch. from their D. We know that that strong side is going to be there. So that means that the walls usually aren't going to be open, right? These walls aren't going to be open. So our centerman right now, we want to make sure that you can be somewhere underneath this puck, an available option for, I think that's 56, or to put that puck. But you know that their D is going to be on top of you. So the week going into that, you should be practicing this. So instead of just doing your normal breakout drills that you're doing, do breakout drills where either you have a coach that's standing there or you have the other players that are standing there, so that your players feel familiar and comfortable when they get inside of that. Because it's going to happen to you. You know what's going to happen to you. Breakouts are really important to me, so I want to always practice those. O-zone tendencies of the Austrians. Austrians are in white right now playing against the Danes. So I'm just going to have 2 clips of this showing what they're good at. Love this great little move, put that puck back down. And this is what the Austrians, I think, makes them special, is they work. They work for first touch. They work on retrievals. It's not going to be an easy day for us in the D zone if we're the team in red. They're heavy on the puck. You're starting to see their D that's going to dive in and surf. So we have to be aware of that. So when your wingers, your forwards are going to know that their D are going to be moving on you all day long, all day long. First touch, this is where they're real special. Excellent job. They're going to hold this puck. They're big. They're strong. We want our team to be aware of that going into it. So all these things, when you're watching the game today, Finland against Austria, we can start to look for these tendencies. This is where they're good. Really good. They did a great job. One more O-zone clip just to show us. Austrians are going to work for those. This D is going to make a great move. I might keep this as a foundation clip. He's got nothing, so he has the courage to put that back down. Don't shoot into somebody's pads. Moving these pucks. There's that 3 high. 3 high. So our players need to know this. So whatever your D zone coverage is, how you solve 3 players high, you want them to be aware of that. This is evidence. There's your retrieval race. So your players are going to know in the D zone they have to work to retrieve pucks. We have to be a first touch team in the D zone all day long. And it's not going to be an easy night against them. 3 above the puck. Great job. Great job by these guys. Now we'd have a couple of O-zone face-offs. This was a team, when I was looking at them, I felt that most of their O-zone face-off tendencies were just getting pucks to the net from the D, which is a great thing for your team to do. It's the easiest thing you can do, and it's the smartest thing that you can do, I think, instead of all crazy face-off plays. But you want to know how you sort those face-offs out. So the very, very first thing I would do is I would have a diagram, and I would say where our center would be, where our D would be, where our wingers would be, and we would talk openly before the game of what we would do to solve these problems. So when you show a pre-scout, usually, if you have a long time before the game, so in college hockey we have like 4 days, so I introduce little pieces from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then Friday, if we play at 7 o'clock, at 5:15 p.m., that's when I show the 5-on-5 pre-scout, and we would talk about their face-off plays, and we would talk about how to solve them, right? What do you do to do that? This is just an easy one. Puck comes back up to the D, and they're looking to bomb these things. So how do you solve that? Do you have your wingers flex out? Whatever you would do to solve those problems, you want your team to see that they're going to have a lot of shooting. I had a whole bunch of those. This would be an overload, so they have 4 people up front. So how do you solve this? A lot of teams would line up a D on the half wall. Maybe in this situation, when you see an overload here, you might line up a winger on the half wall, a winger on the inside, and have your D eat this puck, which is never fun to do. But when this face-off alignment comes from the Austrians, your team needs to know that. They can't be surprised, right? So this would be an overload situation. 96 is just going to look to get that off. Great job. They go into a retrieval race. One more for you. I just call this a quick strike. I don't know why it's very popular in the NHL. This is where 9 comes off the half wall and looks to bomb this. So who's responsible? Because if they score on this and they come back to the bench, this guy's looking at this guy, looking at this guy, and the goalie's looking at all 5 of you going, what the heck's wrong with you guys? Right? So you need to know how to solve these problems. Who's going to eat this puck? That's a very common one. Okay, now we're going to look the other way out. So we worked all the way from their D zone through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, the forecheck, O-zone tendencies, O-zone face-off wins. How about O-zone face-off losses? Now we have the puck. So we're going to work from our end out. How do we solve all these problems? So when their O-zone face-off losses, they're in white. Do they send 2 guys? Do they send 1 guy? Do they send 3 guys? Do they send no guys, which happens sometimes too? You want to be aware. Small details. Which hands are the defensemen at the top? So in your face-off pre-scouts, you can start to teach your team to read the hands of their defensemen. So if we go all the way back to the first clip in the D zone faceoff, we want to see which hands are their defensemen, because that's usually going to give you some information. Same from up here. It's going to be really hard for this player right now to keep a puck in if it's on the wall, because he's going to be on his backhand. Information for you, right? So they send one player pretty hard. Two is going to jump that puck. This is a great foundation clip. I love the Austrian player is going to work above this. But this defenseman has to back out because he's on his backhand right there. It's a hard situation. So the same thing, lefty, right? This is O-zone face-off loss. Lefty, when this puck comes back up the strong side, that might be an exit plan for you. Now you know that this player is on his backhand. That's a detail for you. Teach your players that. So if you're in any kind of a situation where you're in trouble here, if you're the Danes, you can get this puck along the wall. You're going to buy your team an extra half a second. How do you solve those problems? Control breakout. This was something I found very interesting watching. I watched about 3 or 4 of their preseason tournament games, and they did not do this same control breakout defense, a set forecheck. This is a 1-3-1, so it's new, right? So that's an interesting thing. If you're dealing with new things here, in a 1-3-1 forecheck, this is new. If I didn't just watch these most recent games, we wouldn't know that. So that's good information because it's a new system for them. You can maybe pick on that. You can maybe look for ways to exploit it. Maybe they've been doing it forever, and in the preseason they were trying something different. I don't know. But this is a classic 1-3-1. You can see the 1-3-1, right? So how do you solve those problems? Whether you use indirects, whether you work on the pockets behind. And now let's look at those themes again, right? We want to pick on their D. We want to hunt them. Now they're into some forecheck situation for the Danes. I would probably show one of these, but just to show its proof. It's not a one-time situation, that 1-3-1. Here's your 1-3-1 again, right? There's your 1-3-1. Back in. Let's work on those D. Let's hunt them down. Try to get some ozone time. This is a good example of it again. Here's your 1-3-1. And this is more high-level stuff for you, but you can start to understand against, in the NHL, we would want to know who is which is their safety D. Is it a right-handed D? Is it a left-handed D? And if you know that, you can change your game plan of how you enter into it, right? Because D are different than a winger at accepting a rush coming towards you, right? So those would be higher level things for you. It's good information for your team to have. A couple of these left. Okay, this is just, they're into white right now, and the theme of them. I want to show what they're good at. I want our team to be respectful of them and see how good they are. They're a very, very disciplined, hard back-checking, tracking team. And then here's your theme. Let's stay on these D. The more you teach your team this, the more you show them, the more success you're going to have. All right, neutral zone forecheck. This is them in white. This is a 1-2-2, and it's a 1-2-2 that's pretty aggressive. This guy's going to jump this guy right now. So we want to know exactly what they're going to do. Typically, I would talk about having a low winger to be on a flat seam right now versus 1-2-2s. Usually the weak side is going to be open, so we would look for that flat seam, and we would practice it that week. If it's a 2-man forecheck in the neutral zone, if it's a 1-3-1, you practice against that so your team is comfortable in those situations. So it's a 1-2-2 forecheck for you. They're good at it. They stay on their pucks. We know that theme's coming. Here they are against the Swedes. Here's your 1. There's your 2 that's going to jump on that one. Maybe that weak side's going to be open for you. They get in, they get an entry. Okay, D-zone coverage. Okay, I only got 2 clips for us right now. And this is, a lot of teams do man-on-man, player-on-player, D-zone coverage. For me, watching the Austrians, I didn't find that. I found they're a little bit more zone, and how you do that is you can see if one player is going to follow other players all over the ice. So he releases, there's going to be a release, he works back to the net. So, you would talk about your own O-zone, finding the soft spots against his own defense. If it's a man-on-man, how you find how to beat them. One person beats another person there, then the whole D-zone coverage shuts down for the opponents. Swedes, best in the world at this stuff. This is fantastic with their NHL players. Doing a great job here. Austrians, I think, are just working their behinds off. Doing a great job. So what we're trying to find is how do you win? So for me, there's really 3 simple rules in a team. You got to agree what the other team does. You got to agree on how you're going to play against them. And then you have to hold your team accountable to that. So you have to take your team into a situation where they're prepared for that. But if you can talk about it all week long with your team and say, hey, this is what we need to do, how do we do it? And then how do I hold you accountable as a coach? And ultimately, the best teams are led by the players. Your locker room holds each other accountable. How do we play? I think that's the easiest thing in the world. How your team plays. What's your team's identity? It's us versus them. That's it. So as your season goes on, you can show more clips about yourselves. If you're playing the same team 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, you don't need to show them 1, 2, 2 neutral zone forechecks. You show them clips of your own team against a neutral zone forecheck. It doesn't even have to be the opponent that you're playing. It could be a totally different player, changing their mindset so they see themselves having some success. I think the best teams are uncomplicated and simple. So that's why when I would give a pre-scout, it wouldn't be as long as we've just gone. So I want to be in there, soup to nuts, 8, 9 minutes. That's it. Because people's attention spans, already half of you are asleep listening to me right now. I don't know if it's because of all the long drinks last night or whatever we were up to, but a human being attention span to sit here and listen 82 times a year or 56 times a year or 35 times a year, wherever you coach, you don't want to sit and listen to the coach just go over the same thing over and over, which is also why you should split up the pre-scouts. So we would have a separate one for a penalty kill, and we would have a separate one for a power play. So I have one coach who runs a power play, one coach who runs a penalty kill. The players are getting different voices. It's not 3 in a row, so it's 40 minutes. Nobody wants to do that before a game. It's split up evenly during the day. You should aim for about a 9 or 10 minutes. If you're getting up and you're having 25 minutes of watching the other team, I don't really personally think you're being efficient. Players need to play on instinct. At the end of the day, we're coaches. We stand on the bench, we call out the lines, we open the doors, and we let the players go and play. This is a performance-based game. The players have to perform. I don't have a remote control, an Xbox, a PlayStation, and I can't play for you. When the players come back to the bench and they say, what do you want me to do there? Sometimes you just have to say you have to play. Our job is to prepare them. The pre-scout is an example of the preparation, but there are instructions. The instructions is the game plan that we just shared with you, right? And if you can do that over the course of the week, and then you need to have some mental agility, which means you have to be able to solve problems inside the games. The other teams get paid too. It's really weird, but the other team wants to win. I know, it's strange. They don't want you to win, so they will adjust. And when you have good coaches on the other teams, they're going to make adjustments inside the game. So you need to have some mental agility as a coach to be able to recognize that, and ultimately you want your players to recognize that too. And you have to prepare for the challenges, because when it starts to rain and there's a storm, you can't complain if you haven't prepared your team. This is how you prepare your team, because hope, that's not a course of action. That's not a really good indication of long-term success for you as a coach. So the last thing we'll do here, what I was going to do is I was going to get up a couple of people here, and we were going to continue to do a pre-scout together, but I'm not sure we have time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would also present this, because people do learn differently, right? So I have different types of pre-scout forms, right? So I have one that goes to the staff that's a little bit different. This isn't actually one that I completed. This is just I did one from an old NHL one I had, and I just put Austria on there. But this one is actually from Team Austria, right? So we would post this. Or if I was an assistant coach, I would prepare this, and I would give it to the head coach, and I would let him or her decide if he or she wanted to put that up on the wall. Sometimes you put these papers up in your dressing room. Sometimes coaches will have diagrams, whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. I look at the general things about that team. I would want to know how many left-handed D were there. I would talk about them loving their control breakouts. I would talk about that. This is something different. They went to a 1-3-1 recently. We need to know this, because that could be an area to exploit. I thought that they added layers to their face-off, which means their face-off plays got better and better and better before this tournament started. I love how hard Austria tracked. I thought they're real heavy on the puck in the O-zone, which means they don't give up the puck very easily in the O-zone. Very strong retrieval team. I think Roger does a great job with his staff. They have an identity. So I know when I watch Austria, they have a clear, hard-working, simple, direct identity. We want to know that when we play against them. Do not take them lightly. I thought their goaltending was great. That was just something I think that Starkbaum's doing a great job. Some small details here. They slash in their exits. We would want to talk to our D about that. We would want to talk about, sometimes on the entries or coming into the offensive zone that they would have a tendency to hold on to pucks. Can we hold the blue lines? Can we hold the blue lines? We saw that trouble in the breakouts in the D zone and getting pucks off that high layer there. So can we pre-pinch? Can we hold that blue line in the O zone? Can we hold that blue line in the D zone on their entries? Excellent retrieval team. This is one of the best teams I've seen at that first touch. They are really, really hungry. We would talk about our team, this success that we would want to have, staying on their D, hunting their D, making their D's feet turn. Those 1-3-1s, we'd talk about the indirects, holding the blue lines, a little bit about breakouts, first touch, and then I would have some details in there, right? Like my personal one would be much more detailed than this, but for today, this would just be, things that I would look at against Austria. And I'm not picking on Austria. I have a huge respect for what they're doing. Why we chose them for today is because we're going to watch them as a group collectively today play against the Finns. I talk about their face-offs a little bit. I would go into further detail in their face-offs. I would talk about their face-off losses. I would talk about their D-zone face-off loss, things that we would look in there. I would have clips. Sometimes I might just post something on the board. Hey, their D-zone face-off, their center doesn't stay on center. Something like that. It might be something that's interesting. Their neutral zone, we didn't even talk about the neutral zone face-off wins, face-off losses. And then ultimately, you come up with a plan. Bless you. What I was planning on doing was to pull up I had versus the Czechs. I went through a game, and then I just clipped all the events right here, and then I was going to continue on that, but I think I'm bumped up on time, and then I was going to have somebody come up here and sit with me. But I think other than that, I would just, I would talk about the fact that teams are predictable. You want to know that. You want to try to find the identity of that team. The more organized you are, the more detailed that you are, the different types of presenting information you can give your team as a coach, I think your team is going to feel way more confident, which is what you're ultimately trying to do to get your teams to feel the best that they can feel when they go into an opponent. There's no better feeling as a player to know that your coaches are aware of the identity of the team that you're playing, that they know that you did your job and you are understanding of the opponent that you're going to play. Other than that, I think that's all we have time for today, I think, and I'm getting the hook like on the old Price is Right TV show there. Are there any questions? Any questions anybody has for today? Awesome. Well, all right, and I'm around. You can find me at any point. I'm an easy person to find. Again, just lastly to...
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, we've got probably 2 or 3 minutes for a question. I'm going to get you started, and maybe you can have one. But Todd, fantastic presentation, really. Thank you so much. But one of my questions was around how much involvement do the players have in the development of the scouting reports? How do you work with the players in terms of do you ever allow them to do a pre-scout themselves, or how?
So traditionally, the players, like your word, at least in the NCAA, you have to go to school, you have training, you have practice. They don't have a ton of time. In the NHL, you have 82 games a year. You have very little practice time. The coaches are the ones that get paid to do this. So my history has always been we do all the work and then we give it to the players. At the end of the day, in the NHL especially, you're dealing with the best players in the world. They're going to see things at a different level than we can see things. They might come back to the bench and say, you know what? They're locking that weak side. That weak side's not available to us anymore. Or, a D-zone face-off. They're coming up the strong side all the time. Usually, you should be able to see that. In the NHL, you'll have 4 or 5 coaches, and that's an advantage. And you have somebody up top that's watching who's not emotionally attached to the bench or the game, so they can see things more clearly. The players usually have a voice in things. Technology is an amazing thing now. I'm sure that most of the people in the room right now don't have the availability to have iPads on the bench, but you might have the ability to have an iPad where you can go back and look at things. So players would have a voice in the identity of the team that we're playing, but they wouldn't have, in my experience, they wouldn't have the ability to help create this. But you do want players involved. Sometimes, just to keep people awake in the room, I'll grab a player and I'll just say, hey, hey, Pat, Are you awake right now, Pat? Okay, Pat, you tell me what you see right now. What's going to come up next? If they're going to 1-2-2 on this forecheck, what do we want to do? And I know Pat's forgotten more about hockey than I'm ever going to know, and he's going to tell us that that weak side is going to be available to us all day long, right? So you want them engaged in that. That's how I personally keep players involved, is every once in a while. They know it's coming, and their backs are a little bit straight right now because at any point I could pick on anybody in the room and I say, what do you got here? What do you see? Sometimes. That's how I personally involve players.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Any questions from the floor? Anybody? Okay.
Awesome.
So Todd's going to be around, obviously, and we've got a quick break now for coffee. We've got coffee non-stop next door. We've got about 15 minutes until 10:15. Please feel free to grab Todd during that break, and please join me thanking Todd for a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Kiitos. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you?